In yesterday's class, we have discussed like what are the different types of drivers and what are the basic SQL queries and all. Okay, we'll discuss the concept related to Oracle in extended way after a couple of days. But first we'll complete JDBC and then after we'll look after them. Okay, and as we have seen earlier, we have written some queries, some DDL related queries, some DQL related queries, and some DML related queries. Okay, but how we can execute those queries from a Java application? Okay, first of all, why we need to execute those queries from a Java application? So the database cannot directly interact with the user interface. See, let's consider like you have a website where your results are posted. So in the user interface, you enter your roll number and click on search so that your results will be displayed. But that user interface and that server mechanism will not be possible with Oracle server. For Oracle, if we just give the query, it will give the result set, that's it. But displaying the information that is retrieved from the database as well as sending the information from the interface to the database will be possible only through a programming language. So through Java, how we can make it possible, how we can interact with a database. So in order to interact with the database from a Java application, the first thing is we should have a driver. Without driver, we cannot make interaction from the Java application to the database. As we have seen, we have 4 types of driver, and the most prominently used driver is type 4 driver. Okay, type 4 driver which doesn't require any intermediate software, directly from the Java application through driver to database. Okay, and this driver will be available as jar file. Okay, the 4th type of driver will be available as a jar file. Okay, for Oracle, it is the 4th type of driver is called as a Oracle thin driver. Okay, this 4th type of driver for Oracle is called as a Oracle thin driver. So we download the Oracle thin driver and we update that in the class path. The first thing that we should do is we should download the jar file and we should update them in the class path. Now let me copy this jar file into some location. HU apps jars. Okay, I'll create a folder named jars and I'll paste this. So all the jars will be one location for our applications. Okay, so now let me copy this path. Let me copy this path and let me update the class path. The first thing that we need to do is update the class path with Oracle.jar. Just because this OJDBC.jar is not a library that exists in the JDK software or JRA software. It is a third-party jar file. Whenever we want to make use of third-party jar files, the first thing that we need to do is we need to update the class path. So let me update the class path, put semicolon. Okay, now the class path is being updated. That's the first step. Update the class path with Oracle thin driver. Okay, now let us write a sample application which interacts with the database. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do to have interaction with the database, let's write a sample application. Public class let me write a main method. Now let me save this in a specific location. JDBC. SRC. Classes. SRC. Com. SCA. JDBC. Demo. .java. So now I have written a simple class which has a main method. Now the first thing that we need to do to interact a Java application to a database is registration of the driver. The first step is registration of the driver. Whatever the driver it may be, the first type of driver or second type of driver or third type of driver or fourth type of driver, whatever the driver it might be, first we should register the driver. The first thing that we need to do is register the driver. Okay. Then how to register the driver? First of all, if it is first type of driver means it is available by default in the jar itself. Okay. If it is a fourth type of driver, we should update in the class path. Either we update in the class path or if it is, whether it is default, whether it is present in the jar by default. Any type of driver, whatever the type of driver it might be, either first type or second or third or fourth, any type of driver. First it should be registered. Then how can we register a driver? Okay, within a Java application means by using class dot forName. Just registration of driver is nothing but just executing the class dot forName. Okay, just this is the driver class name, oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. So if you are registering the class name, registration of the driver class is nothing but executing the class.forName with the specific driver class. Registration of driver is nothing but execution of class.forName with a specific driver class. What class.forName will do? Why it is used? To create an instance. Okay. Now, for an execution, a driver should be registered only once. A driver should be registered only once for an execution. Driver should be registered only once per execution. So, if you want to register the driver, we should write this code, class.forName of the driver. If you want to register the driver, we should write class.forName of driver. If you want to register the driver only once per execution, where I should write this code? If you want to register the driver only once per execution, then this code, this highlighted code should be executed only once per execution. Then if I want to write this highlighted code only once per execution, where I should write that code? The code should be written in static installation block so that it will be executed only once per execution. Okay, so I'll write this code in a static initialization block. The driver registration should be done only once per execution. Now, will this statement throw any exception? Will this statement in the fifth line throw any exception? Yes. What is the exception? Class.phone exception. So class.forename will throw class.phone exception. So we should surround it in the try catch. Okay, then the first step is over. The first step is over. Okay, the first step is over. Registration of driver is completed. Registration of driver is nothing but execution of class.forename by giving the driver class name along with the package structure. We should give the driver class name along with the package structure. Is oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. It is the package. It is a driver class for type 4 driver, type 4 oracle driver. Like that, for type 4 MySQL driver, there might be another class. For type 4 DB2 driver, there might be another class. Whatever the class, that might be, first the driver class should be registered. Understand? Then the registration of the driver class is completed. And the next step is, once the driver class is registered, once the driver class is registered, once the driver class is registered, we have application, we have a driver class which is registered, and we have a database. Okay, we have an application, we have a driver class which is registered, but we have a database. But just the registration of driver will not connect to the database. So first, we have these three are individual entities: the driver, database, and Java application. This application, driver, database. These are three individual entities. Now, what we do is we register the driver with the application. Now, is this enough to connect to the database? No. So, we should establish a connection to the database. But how we can establish this connection? Means, okay, to establish a connection to a database, we use a class named driver manager. And one more important thing is, all the entities that are related to JDBC will be there, okay, inside java.sql package. All the entities that are related to JDBC will be there in java.sql package. So even driver manager will be there in java.sql package. Driver manager dot, there is a static method in the driver manager which is get connection. Please don't write now. At the end, I'll give some time to note it down. We'll be changing this example. Okay? Driver manager class has a static method which is named as get connection. Asharath, just please listen. That's what I told, right? Driver manager class has a static method get connection. Okay? The driver manager is a class, okay, which is used to get the connection for a database. Okay? Which is used to establish a connection between a Java application and a database. And whenever a driver is registered, okay, then that driver will be listed in the driver manager. Whenever a driver is registered, the driver will be listed with the driver manager. Understood? Whenever we execute class.forName for a driver, okay, then that driver will be registered internally using driver manager. Okay, how it is being registered means, if you see the package structure of the driver manager, now, is it implementing with any interface? Is Oracle driver implementing with any interface? Is Oracle driver implementing with any interface? Yes? What is the interface? Driver that exists in Java.sql package. Okay? Any driver class should be a specialized entity for Java.sql.driver, which is a interface. Any driver class, whether it is first type of driver or second type or third type or fourth type, any type of driver class should be a specialized entity. Any driver class should be a specialized entity for the interface Java.sql.driver. Okay? So, whatever the driver it might be, whether it is a driver which is provided by third party or whether it is a driver which is inbuilt in Java application, any driver class should be a specialized entity to Java.sql.driver, which is a interface. Okay? And now, from this Java.sql.driver, there will be a method inherited. There will be some method register there will be a method that is used to register driver in this driver class itself. I do not remember that method name exactly, but there will be some method in this driver interface or in this driver class which is used to register the driver. What happens is, whenever we execute class.forName for a driver class, or whenever we execute class.forName for a class which implements with the driver interface, whenever we execute class.forName on a or on a class which implements with Java.sql.driver, the first thing that happens is this driver class will be registered with the driver manager. Okay? Whenever we execute class.forName on a class which implements with java.sql.driver, then at that point of time itself, that driver class will be registered with the driver manager. And whenever we execute driver manager.getConnection, okay, whenever we execute driver.manager.getConnection, while executing driver.manager.getConnection, okay, we should provide, okay, three things. The first thing is the URL. The first thing is the URL to connect to the database. Okay, the URL to connect to the database. Each and every type of driver and each and every type of the database server will have its own URL syntax. Each and every database server, and within the database server itself, each and every driver type will have its own URL syntax. Okay, for the Oracle fourth type of driver, the URL syntax is for the Oracle fourth type of driver or the Oracle theme driver, the URL syntax is this: @ the machine in which the Oracle is installed. Don't write this, I'll explain this. Okay? Colon, port number, colon, database name, or this is even called as a schema name. Okay? First, JDBC colon Oracle colon thin colon @ the machine in which Oracle is installed. Oracle, let's consider like we are accessing Gmail, and Gmail is accessing internally using Oracle. Okay? Now, are all the users that are using Gmail have a Oracle database in their machine? Yes or no? Let's consider like we are accessing Gmail, and Gmail internally using some Oracle database to maintain the data. Does that mean that all the users that are using Gmail have the Oracle software in their respective machines? No. They are the users of the application, and the Gmail application will be interacting with the database. The database will be somewhere in Mumbai or some Delhi or somewhere else. But how we could be able to access the database? Means through the IP address. Okay? Each and every machine will have a specific IP address. So let's consider like this is the IP address of the machine. So we are trying to access the Oracle server at this IP address. If the Oracle server is installed in the same machine that we are using, so we can use even localhost also. That means JDBC colon Oracle colon thin colon @ localhost. Localhost means the local IP address. Okay? If the machine is other than the local machine, let's consider like this is my machine. I'm interacting with the database that exists in the CC. That means, is that the same machine? The Oracle is installed in CC, but I'm using from here. Then they are not in the same system. If they are not in the same system, then we should give the IP address. The database server and the client are not in the same machine, then we should give the IP address. But if the database server and the client application are there in the same machine, either we can give IP address or even localhost. Understood? But the preferable thing is to give IP address only as a generic way. So we should give IP address in general. Okay? We can give even localhost if the client application and the database server are in the same machine. But make it a habit to give the IP address. Okay? Just because in general database machine and the client application will not be in the same system. Okay? So let me find the IP address of the system. How to find the IP address? Go for ifconfig. Sorry, it's in Linux, right? ipconfig. What shall I? How many IPs are there? I was confused. Which is your IP address? Yeah? Is IP before address? 192, 168, 56, 1. Is it? So I'll give at the rate 192.168.56 something. Okay. Then as extension colon JDBC colon Oracle colon thin colon at the rate the machine where the Oracle is installed. Machine where Oracle is installed means the IP address of that machine where Oracle is installed. Okay. Colon. Now each and every server, when we install any server in the machine, any server in any machine will have a unique number. Let's consider like Tomcat is a server, Oracle is a server, MySQL is a server, DB2 is a server. Each and every server, okay, each and every server in any machine will have a unique number that is called as the port number of the server. Each and every server installed in a machine will have a unique port number. So in general the port number of Oracle is 1521. Okay, and if you install the Oracle 10G version, the default schema name is XE. Is everything satisfied? Is this URL as per this structure? JDBC colon Oracle colon thin colon at the rate machine. We have given the IP address colon port number of Oracle installation. Okay, colon the schema name. The default schema name for 10G is XE. Okay. So in the same database server we can create any number of schemas. Okay, let's consider like in the same database server, one schema is for credit cards, one schema is for some other application, one schema is for some other application. It might be like that. So in the same server we can create any number of schemas. So at the last we should provide the name of the schema that we are interacting with. Understood? This schema is nothing but a collection of database objects. Schema is a collection of database objects in Oracle. And there might be multiple schemas in the same database server. In the same database server there can be multiple schemas. So we should give the name of the schema that we are interacting with. And the default schema for Oracle 10G is XE. Okay. So this is the structure. Like this, the URL structure or the URL syntax will be different for different database servers, and within the database server itself different for different versions of driver, different types of driver. For Oracle thin driver or the Oracle port type of driver, this is the syntax. So let me give the URL. The URL, okay, comma. The second argument is the username. We have used system as a username, and the password that you have given is HCU. Okay, and this driver manager dot get connection method will return a object, okay, of type connection. Just for better visibility, I am writing it in the next line. Okay, connection con is the reference and driver dot manager dot get connection. The return type of get connection is a object to connection. Okay, now connection is a interface in java.sql package. Connection is a interface between interface in java.sql package. Now the very first question of some interviews is, you told that connection is an interface, but how you could able to create an object to connection using driver manager.get connection? By using anonymous inner class. Inside get connection method of the driver manager, by making use of anonymous inner class, a object of type connection or a anonymous inner class to connection object will be created. A object to anonymous inner class of connection will be created and that will be returned. Okay, a object to anonymous inner class of connection interface will be created and that will be returned by the driver manager.get connection and that connection will be referred by con. This is the second step. The first step is registration of driver. The second step is establishing the connection. Okay. And even now we have created. Now what we have done? We have registered the driver and we have created a connection from the Java application to the database. Now once the connection is established, okay, once the connection is established, then what we need to do? We need to perform some transactions or we need to execute some queries that will hit the database. The connection is a bridge. Once the bridge is established, what we do? Let's consider there is a flyover, okay, from Indranagar to Tilakam. What we will do? Once the flyover is established, then what we will do? We will move some vehicles from this end to that end. The vehicle can be moved from this end to that end or that end to this end. That means the transaction can happen from Java application to database or the data might be entered from database to Java application. Now let us see how to perform that transaction. Between once we have registered the driver, using the driver we have established a connection, a bridge. Once the bridge or the connection is established, let us see how to perform a simple transaction. Simple database transaction, okay, using that connection. Once the connection is established, then what we do is, and this almost all the methods in JDBC will raise an exception named SQL exception, which is a checked exception. Almost all the methods in JDBC will raise a checked exception named SQL exception. So if we try to I'm trying to compile the application. What is it telling? Unreported exception, java.sql.sql exception. So almost all the methods in JDBC that we use in JDBC will raise a checked exception, that is a SQL exception. So what I'll do is I'll give in a try catch. which is SQL exception. Let me print the status. Okay. And let me initialize this connection to cont. So we have created a connection. Once the connection is ready, okay, the next step is executing some transaction. To execute some transaction from a JDBC, okay, we should have a statement. We should have a statement object. Let me try to create a statement object. In order to execute or in order to perform some transactions from JDBC, we should have a statement object, and even statement is also a interface in Java.SQL package. First, to have a bridge between Java application and the database, we should have a connection. In that bridge, if you want to perform some transactions from Java application to database or database to Java application, we should have a statement object. Okay? Now, how we can create a statement object means from the connection object, okay, we execute a method create statement. Okay, we execute a method create statement. Okay. Now, once the statement object is created, using the statement object, we will execute the queries. Execute. Let me drop the table. We have created a table h3_person yesterday. Let me drop the table. Okay. Okay. Now, this is a basic Java JDBC application. Okay. Now, first thing is registration of driver. Okay. First thing is registration of driver. How we can register a driver means using class.forName. Once we execute class.forName, okay, then internally what happens is see, in the driver manager there is a method register driver. Whenever we execute class.forName, which implements with java.sql.driver. Whenever we execute class.forName with a class that implements java.sql.driver. This Oracle driver implements java.sql.driver. Whenever we write a class.forName with a class that implements java.sql.driver, the first thing that is done is the driver manager.register driver method will be executed. So this driver class will be registered automatically with the driver manager. That is the first step. The second step is creation of connection. Creation of connection object. How we can create a connection object means driver manager dot get connection of URL. The first parameter is URL, and the URL syntax will be changing from one database server to another database server. Within the database server also, from one type of driver to another type of driver, the URL will be changing. For Oracle fourth type of driver or Oracle thin driver, this is the syntax. JDBC colon, Oracle colon, thin colon, @ IP address of the system where the database server is installed, colon, the port number of the database server, colon, the schema. And the second argument is the username, third argument is the password. Okay? And now, once the connection is ready, connection is like a bridge between the Java application and database. Once the bridge is ready between these two entities, what we'll do is, we'll perform some transaction between these two entities. In order to perform a transaction from a Java application to a database, we should have a connection object, statement object. Okay? And the statement object will be created from a connection object using a method create statement. And once the statement is ready, we execute the query. We execute the query using execute method. Now all these methods will throw a checker exception, which is a SQL exception. Understood? And once the purpose is over, what we should do is, we should close them. Then which one should be first closed? Statement or connection? Statement should be first closed. So it should not be in catch, it should be in finally. And finally, in try catch, which is having SQL exception. If statement is not equal to null, then close nullify that. The same thing that we had done in the file system. The same way, if connection is not equal to null, connection is equal to connection dot close, connection equal to null. Whenever the purpose of the resource is over, we should close that resource. Understood? Now, understood the application? Understood the basic database application? Everybody? Now, let me try to compile and execute this application. Where is 46? This is 46. So let me give a semicolon here. SQL exception is not imported, so let me import SQL exception. It's telling that okay, cannot find symbol SQL exception just because SQL exception is a class in java.sql package. So we should import even that. Okay. Was it compiled? Yes. Now let me go to SQL Plus. Now students person, right? Yesterday we have created student score person. Now does the table exist in the database? Yes. Now we are trying to drop the table. Now if this application works perfectly, the table should be dropped from the database. Now let's try to, this application was compiled where it is. This application was compiled. Okay. Now let me go to the classes. If this application works perfectly, then the table should be dropped from the database. Let me try to execute. Okay. Now, I don't know whether this application was executed perfectly or not. Now, let us see. Let me execute the same query again. What happened? Same query again is telling that the table doesn't exist. Just because this application worked perfectly and this application could be able to drop the table from the database. Understood? Understood? So, this is how the basic application works. And here is a small problem. Establishment of a connection to a database. Establishment of a connection to a database is a very costly operation. That means it needs to interact with the database. The Java application needs to interact with the database. Several resources should be created. Several resources should be created to establish establish a connection between Java application and the database. So, since it is costly in the sense, it consumes some time. It consumes more memory and more time to create a connection from a Java application to a database. So, in general, we won't create multiple connections in the same application. Let's consider like the same application. Let's consider like banking application is there. There are lakhs of users for the same banking application. For lakhs of users, we won't create lakhs of connections. For each and every user, if you create a connection object, means the application performance will be degraded like anything. So, we should have limited connections and we reuse the connections for multiple transactions. Just because the connection is a very expensive object. Connection is a very expensive object to create and maintain. So, database connection objects will not be multiple. We won't create multiple database objects for each, we won't create a connection for each and every transaction. We create a connection and we reuse the same connection for multiple transactions. Understood? We create a connection and reuse the same connection for multiple transactions. Understood? So, in general, even this connection creation also will be there in the static initialization block. Just because it should be only one. The connection also should be only one. So what we do is, we create a static attribute connection so that only static attributes can be accessed inside static initialization block. Okay? Now will it compile successful? Why it won't compile successful? Get connection method? What is the exception? Get connection will raise the SQL exception, but this catch has only class not found exception. So let me write another catch with SQL exception. So the connection, the driver registration as well as the connection creation will be done in the static initialization block. Just because both are expensive operations. Since both are expensive operations, we should do them only once per execution. Understood? Expensive in the sense they consume more time, they will take more time to be created and they will consume more memory in the heap. So, if we create 10 connections for 10 transactions, what happens? he will be loaded with connection objects and the performance of the application will be reduced. So we should minimize the number of connection objects. Okay, since this is a very simple application, we can have only one connection object for multiple transactions. Understood? So now we can run the application. From top to bottom. If you want, you can note down the application. Those who want to note down, they can note down the application from top to bottom. Since this is a very important thing, I am giving time to note down the example. Just in comments, while writing each and every step, just write some comments. Why this step? Why driver class.forName is used? Why driver.manager.getConnection is used? Okay, write some comments about that, so that it will be easy if you want to refer in the future. Each and every concept in JDBC is very important for interviews. 99% of the questions will be asked from our class only. And the first possible question is, you are executing driver manager.getConnection. What driver manager.getConnection will do? Okay, it will create a connection based on the registered driver. But by using class.forName, how the driver is being registered? See, are we interlinking class.forName and driver manager? Are we interlinking class.forName? Are we assigning class.forName to driver manager? No. But how the driver manager can locate the driver class, which is some other statement. Class.forName is some other statement and driver manager is some other class. But how these two are interlinked? Means because of the driver interface that is implementing. When we execute class.forName on a class which implements with the driver interface, the first thing that is done is that class will be registered with the driver manager class by using registered driver of the driver manager. I have shown you, right, driver manager class. Okay, there is a driver manager class in Java.SQL package, and the driver manager.registered driver method will be executed whenever we execute class.forName with a class that implements with Java.SQL.driver. Understood? What's your understood? Whenever we execute class.forName with a class that implements with Java.SQL.driver. This Oracle driver implements with Java.SQL.driver. Now, what the forName method will do means, if it is If the class is a specialized entity for java.sql.driver, the first thing the for name method will do is it will execute driver manager dot register driver. Driver manager dot register driver. So it will register the driver so that the driver information will be there in the driver manager. Okay, and driver manager dot get connection of the URL, and the connection object will be retrieved on by making use the information of the driver itself. Driver manager will create a connection object by using the information of the registered driver. If no driver is registered, then it will raise a SQL exception. Understood? We'll see those things in the next steps. Let all of them write. Or shall I scroll on? And we should not write it. We should not close the connection when the statement is closed. The connection should be closed only when it's the end of the execution. Only at the end of the execution we should close the connection. Now, let us see. Now, there are three methods in the statement interface. In the statement interface, there are three methods: execute, update, execute query. Okay. These three methods are used for three different types of SQL statements. Okay, the first one, execute, is used for DDL statements. Execute update method will be used for DML statements. Execute query will be used for DQL statements. If the same query is something like insert into something, then we go for execute update. If the same thing is select star from something, then we will go for execute query method. In statement, there are three methods that are specific to the type of the SQL statement. If the SQL query that we are executing is of type DDL, then we use execute method. The same is DML, we use execute update. The same is DQL, then we go for execute query. Okay, now for the Java application, let me try to insert the table. Sorry, let me try to create the table. Create table. HC_person. Person_ID in person_name varchar 30 age int. Okay, so I'm trying to create a table from the Java application. Now let us see. Does the table exist? No, the table doesn't exist. Now, let me try to compile the application and execute the application. Let me go back to SRC. Let me try to clear the screen, compile the application, go to the classes, and execute the application. Okay? Now, let me see. The same thing again. Now, was the table created from the Java application? Yes. Table was being created from the Java application. Okay? Any kind of DDL operations can be done through the method execute of the statement. Now, let me use execute update. Let me drop the table again. Okay? Let me drop the table. So that the table doesn't exist. Okay? Now, let me try to use execute update for DDL operation, which will give a exception. Why? Was not compiled? It was created, but in general it will not create. Might be it's specific to the database server. Okay, but some database, some drivers, let's consider like MySQL or some other drivers, will not accept this kind of syntaxes. Okay, execute might be this different for Oracle thin driver, But execute is specific to DDML operations, execute update is specific to DML, and execute query is specific to DQL operations. Okay, we should not use in general, but it is accepting. But in general, we should not use execute for DML and execute update for DDL. Execute is specific to DDL, execute update for DML, query for DQL. Okay, now a table is being created from a Java application. Okay, now let me try to insert some data. Now to insert the data or in order to perform any DML operation, we use execute update. Values 100, so I'm executing the query execute update. So let me try to compile and execute the application. Was executed. Let me execute the query. So was the record inserted from the Java application? Yes, the record has been inserted from the Java application. So this is how we can perform a database operation from the Java application. Okay, understood? Now what I'll do is I'll not register the driver. I'll not register the driver. Let us see whether this transaction happens or not. Okay, now let me compile the application. The catch with class not found exception will be there. Let me make, otherwise let me comment this catch also. Let me comment the catch also just because it is a checked exception. Okay, now let me not register the driver. Let's compile, go to the classes, execute application. When it tells that when it gives the exception, where it is giving the exception? JDBC-demo.java at line 30. What is the line 30? When we create a statement. Okay, so in order to perform any database transaction, the driver is mandatory. Without registering a driver, we cannot perform any database operation, any kind of database operation. So the mandatory thing to perform a database operation is registration of a driver. Registration of the driver, creation of a connection, then creation of a statement object, and then execute the query. And finally close the statement. These are the steps involved, okay, in any database operation. Understood? Everybody? Now the same thing for insert or even update also. Now let me try to update the values. Okay, I'm just trying to insert the data into x_person where person ID is 100. Sorry, I'm trying to update the record. Okay, any DML operation can be done through execute update. Class not found exception is there. Let me try to remove these comments so that the class.forName will compile successful. Go to the classes. Let me try to, before executing the application, 100 Ravindra and 27. Let me execute the application. And let me read 100 Ravindra and the age is modified to 28. Just because in the Java application we have set the age to 28 where person ID is 100. Okay? Even we can perform a delete operation. Okay, let me try to compile the application. Go to the classes, compile the application, go to the classes, execute the application. So there is no row. That row is being deleted from the Java application. This is how we can perform any DML operation. DML operation through execute. DML operation through execute update. Okay. Now the DQL operation is little bit different and tricky. Okay. And one more important interview question regarding JDBC statements is the return types. Okay. Then let me try to drop the table. Let me try to drop the table. Okay, and let me try to recreate the table. Now it's a create statement. Okay, create table HC_person, person ID of type int, name of type varchar, and age of type int. This is a create statement. Am I right? So in order to execute this create statement, we use the method execute, and the execute method return type is a boolean. The execute method return type is a boolean. Okay. It tells whether the database object or the DDL operation is successful or not. The execute method returns a boolean. The boolean flag tells whether the DDL operation is successful or not. If the DDL operation is successful, then the execute method will return true. If the DDL operation is failed, the execute method will return false. The return type of execute method is a boolean. A true or false. True when the execute method returns true means when the database operation or the DDL query is successfully executed, it will return true. Execute method will return true. If the database operation is not successful, if the query is not successfully executed, then the execute method will return false. The return type of execute is boolean. Now let me try to create the object. Let me try to go to SRC, compile the application, go to the classes, execute the application. Why it is false? Why it is reverse? Why it is reverse? I'm not sure, but in general that will be a case. Boolean value which is true or false. True means the database operation is successful, false means the database operation is failed. But it is giving in reverse. I'll let you know in the next class. But in general, true will be there if the database operation is successful. False will be returned if the database operation is failed. Here even the database operation is successful, it's returning false. I'm not sure why it is, but it's not that much important. But it will return a boolean value. In case of execute update, the return type is int. In case of execute update, the return type is int. Okay. In case of execute update, the return type is int. The integer value represents how many records of that database object are affected due to this operation. If it is insert, only one record will be updated. But if it is update or delete, we are not sure. Whether with the same query we can delete 100 or 1000 or even 1 lakh of rows. But this execute update method will return the number of records affected because of the DML operation. Execute update method returns integer which represents the number of records of that database object affected because of that DML operation. Number of records of the database object means it might be table or anything. Execute update returns an integer which represents the number of records that are affected because of the DML operation. Okay, now let us see. Sorry, I'm telling rows affected. Let me copy and paste it. So, what are the classes? Execute application. How many rows are affected? One row. Now, one row is there. Now, let me insert another row. Okay? Let me try to compile. Go to the classes, execute application. One row is affected. Now let me try to update. Now how many records are there total? 2 records are there. Now let me execute update query. Now, how many rows will be affected? There are 2 rows. Among those 2 rows, how many rows will be affected because of this query? There are 2 rows in the table. 100, 200. Name is Ravindran, name is Prasad. How many rows will be affected because of this query? 1 or 2? 2. Just because by default, if there is no where clause, all the rows are affected because of the DML operation. So, what is the rows affected? Will it be 1 or 2? What it will be? What is the rows affected printed here? 1 or 2? Will it be 1 or 2? Definitely 2, just because 2 rows are being updated because of this query. Okay? So the value will be 2. Just because of that update operation, 2 rows are being updated. Okay? Both the rows are updated to 29. It gives the number of records or the number of rows updated, or the number of rows that are affected because of the DML operation. Okay, execute update is for DML operation, and it will return an integer value that represents the number of records or the number of rows affected because of the DML operation. Understood? And the third method is execute query. Okay, why execute query is used? Let us see. And before discussing execute query, whenever we give a bad URL, let's consider like I'm giving RR, the schema doesn't exist. Okay, the result will raise a SQL exception. So it tells that the schema doesn't exist. Okay, while while creating the connection itself, it tells that the schema doesn't exist. So while designing the URL, we should be careful. It should follow all the rules, and the URL rules or the URL syntax will be specific to specific type of driver and specific database server. Okay, and the third type of operation is DQL operation. Okay, and let us see how the DQL operation will be. To perform a DQL operation, we use execute query. To perform a DQL operation, we use execute query. Okay, so a DQL query. Just I'm writing a SQL statement which belongs to DQL. Okay, and the return type of execute query method is a object that is of type result set. The return type of execute query is a object which is of type result set, and even result set is also a interface in Java.SQL package. Let me import result set. Result set is also an interface in Java.SQL package, so I have imported result set. So first let me make it result set rs equal to null. Okay, and so that I can close them in the final line. The only intention to make them null before try is we can close them in the final block. So which one should be closed first, the result set or the statement? Result set, just because the result set is built on top of statement. So first result set should be closed, then the statement should be closed. So try catch. It's ideal to write separate try catch for separate closing statements. If result set is not equal to null, then make the result set as null. and close the result set. Sorry, close the result set. And make it as none. First the result set is being closed and then statement is being closed. So first the statement is open and then the result set is open. So while closing we should maintain a reverse order. First the result set should be closed and then statement should be closed. Now what we are doing is, first we are creating a statement and in order to perform a DQL operation, what the DQL operation will do? The DQL operation will fetch the data from the database. The DQL operation will fetch the data from the database. Right now we are moving or we are performing some transaction which carries the information from the application to the database. Now the DQL operation will carry the information from the database to the application. Now how that information will be fetched in the application means using the result set object. The information that is fetched from the database will be there in the result set. Now this result set has a method named next. It will be like what we call iterator. It will be something like iterator. While result next. Okay. From a result set, in each and every iteration, a row will be retrieved. If there are 10 rows retrieved because of the select, if 10 rows are retrieved because of the select, then this value will be executed for 10 times. In each and every iteration, a row will be retrieved. A row information will be retrieved. Understood? In each and every iteration, a single row information will be retrieved. That means if there are 100 rows means this value will be executed for 100 times. Okay? Let me print. The ID is there are specific methods. Okay? What is the data type of ID? What is the data type of ID? Sorry, it's person underscore ID. What is the data type of person underscore ID? Integer. So we can use get int. And the indexes in result set will start from 1. The indexes in result set will start from the column indexes in the result set will start from 1, not 0. It's a specific case for the result set. The column indexes in the result set will start from 1. Name is, what's the index of the column name? 2. Now, is it an integer? Is it an integer? No, it is a string. Now, third one is a age, which is an integer. Like that. Understood how we can retrieve the information? In the first index, ID will be there, ID information, second index, name information, third index, age information. It will be repetitive for all the rows. In each and every iteration, a row will be iterated. In that row, what is the value in the first column, second column, and third column? Understood? In each, this value will be executed n number of times for n rows. Let's consider the first row. In the first row, what is the value of the first column? Second column, third column. Let's consider like this is the row. In the first row, this row will be iterated in the while loop. In this row, what is the value of the first column? Second column, third column. And again in the second iteration, second row. First column, second column and third column. Like that the iteration will happen. Understood? And let me try to compile this application. Have you written this application in your notes? If you want you can write it, just because it will be different when compared to DDL and DML operations. But don't forget to close the result set and statement in finally. Oh, now let me try to execute this application. First, let me compile the application. Here is this row affected. Let me remove this. Let's compile. Go to the classes. Execute the application. So there are two rows. The first row ID is 100, name is Ravindra, age is 29. The second row ID is 200, name is Prasad and age is 29. Both the rows are being selected. There are 100 rows, 100 times this while loop is executed and ID, name, age will be printed. Understood? That's how the data can be fetched from the database and the result set can be iterated. Data type of execute is a boolean, whether the database is affected or not, whether the database transaction or the DDL operation is successful or not. Execute update is a int. Okay, what are the number of records or what are the number of rows affected because of the DML operation. Execute query is a result set which contains the information about which contains the data of the rows that are being retrieved. And how we can fetch, how we can retrieve the information from the result set means iterate the result set using next method in the while loop, and we can get the specific values using the indexes. Either we can use the indexes or we can use even the column names also. We can use the indexes or even the column names also. We can use either the indexes or even the column names. Understood? So let me try to compile and execute the application. So it's the same. Okay, but here now in this application I'm not using the indexes, I'm using the names of the columns. Okay, it need not to be in the order, it can be in any order, like first ID, then age, name. It need not to be in the order of the columns as they exist. The information can be retrieved from the result set in any order. Okay? It need not to be in the order that exists in the table. The information from the result set can be retrieved in any order. So first, here I am retrieving the ID, then age, then name. But in the database, it exists first ID, name, and age. But it's not mandatory. Maintaining the order while retrieving the information from the result set is not mandatory. Even the order is not maintained, it will fetch the values. Now, will it give a exception? Yes or no? What is the data type of age and person ID? Int. What is the method that we are using? GetString. Now, will it give a exception or not? Yes or no? Understood my question? Here, person underscore ID is an integer in the database. Age is also an integer in the database. But to fetch the values from the result set, I am using getString method. Will it give a exception, SQL exception at the runtime or not? Just think practically. This is an integer in the database. This is an integer in the database. But from the result set, to get that value, to get the value from the specific column, I am using getString method. In that case, will it give exception at the runtime or not?
So I think when it is extracting, it is treating it as a string value also. Either is value as well as the person ID and age. While extracting, it is treating it as a string. So it won't give.
It's a perfect answer. If we use getString method, the data that is present in the column will be converted into a string and retrieved. Executing getString method will not give an exception for any type of column. For any type of column, we can execute the method getString to get the value. But the returned value will be in a string format. Understood? We can execute the getString method for the column of any data type in the database. If the column type is int or boolean or character or varchar or any data type, whatever the data type it might be, we can execute getString method. But the getString method will return a string only. But if you go for getInt, it will return a specific integer value. But this getString method will return an integer value in form of a string. Okay? But this will not give any exception. So this will perfectly compile and execute. But if I go like this, will it give an exception? Yes or no? Yes or no? It will definitely give an exception. Just because this 10 can be converted into, but this Ravi cannot be converted into an integer value like 23 or 2000 some value. This value cannot be converted into integer, but this integer can be convertible. It's convertible into a string. Understood? So getString method can be used for any column type. But if the column type is a varchar, definitely we should go for getString. Understood? But it's an ideal thing. The ideal way is, the ideal approach is to go for a specific method, get string, get int, get double. We should go for a specific method. Rather than going for a generic get string method, the ideal thing is you go for a specific method. Get int, get string, get double, like that. Understood? And this will give you some basic idea of JDBC. In the next class, we'll see some more extended concepts of JDBC.